Cashflow Diary Podcast, episode 440.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other Cashflow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Massey, and I'm glad that you're here today because at the end of the day, there's a number of you who I know are listening. You're listening right now and wondering, where do I fit in? If you're anything like me, it took you a long time to realize that you made a horrible employee. The only thing you know is, well, the way things work today doesn't really work for me. What I mean by that? You went to school, you got maybe good grades or not, but you just know that system feels instinctively broken. Or you've been there such a long time, you're like, I am so ready for something new. And here's the challenge. You're not living your true genius and or potential. And what it comes down to is you're wondering, what is next? More importantly, what's next for me? And is it out there? Well, I think it is. And the challenge is discovering how to actually do it. It's what businesses call the pivot, right? So how do you do it when you're in that position? And I think today's guest is in a perfect position to help you and I learn a ton more about how we can actually do that, because he himself has pivoted more than once and, more importantly, has written a book about it. Love Your Work, 4 practical ways you can pivot to your best career. I have with me Mr. Robert Dickie III. He's the president of Crown Financial Ministries and has served as a decorated Air Force officer, the CEO of an international company, and as the leader of several nonprofits. You're like, none of that's connected. That's the point. Lots of pivots. So hopefully you are ready to take some copious notes, to learn some things, and put something into action today as you listen to Robert Dickie. Bob, you there?
I'm here, Jay. It's great to be with you today.
I am glad that we are able to make the time. And first and foremost, let me say thank you for choosing to serve our country.
Oh, it was an honor. I really enjoyed every minute of it. Probably one of the best decisions of my life.
Yeah, I come from a military family myself. I never had the courage to do that, but I do business. That's awesome. So before we get too far down this thing, let me ask you the first question. I tend to ask everybody the first time that they're here. You ready?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. I tend to look at today's entrepreneurs a lot like yesterday's superheroes. You know, Batman, Robin, Wonder Woman, etc. And I think entrepreneurs and superheroes have a ton of things in common, because I know occasionally as entrepreneurs, we can think of ourselves as flying around the city, maybe dressed in capes and tights and masks, saving our customers from themselves in various different ways, or providing quality products and services and saving the day. Mm-hmm. Also, like superheroes, entrepreneurs have a beginning. So if you think about Spider-Man, for example, there was a time where he was just a college kid going to school, trying to make ends meet. And then one day, after lab or whatever, he's just taking photos. That's what he was doing. And then he gets bit by a spider, and now he's got this new gift that he has to choose to use for good and or evil. And then hopefully do good. Mm-hmm. So my question to you is as follows. Before, Crown Financial, before your previous book, The Leap, before your new book, before all the nonprofits, before all of the eclectic background that you have collected over your career and we know you for today, what we want to know is, who is Robert Dickie?
Wow, that is a great question. I don't know if I've ever had a question set up that way before. Very well done. Let's see. I think that we go through a journey of life of self-discovery. And if I had to rewind the clock all the way back, prior to my professional roles in the military and things like that, and you'd ask me that question, say when I was 18, any point during high school or college, I probably would have latched on to the term of, hey, Bob Dickey's an athlete. I'm that was probably how I saw myself. And I think that was my identity. And, I think it's interesting that we have various identities throughout the course of our life, and it changes over time. So I, transitioned from identifying as an athlete to then identifying as a military person, a military leader, and then a business leader. And so those things, I think I've changed over time. But one of the things that I found is that, as we latch on to certain things, job titles or positions, to form our identity, that our real identity is deep down, kind of like within our soul. And I think each one of us is given something very unique and distinctive that, even though roles may change in life, that our identity it doesn't. It remains the same. And I think that's probably one of the most important questions that we can ask ourselves is, who are we and why are we here? And what is our mission? What are we hoping to accomplish? I mean, those are the secret of life right there.
Yes, you heard it here first, folks. The secret of life. Totally love that. Now, I have a question. When you mention, identifying as an athlete, you mention identifying as a military leader, business leader, and then ultimately you say, but deep down, there's, commonality. I guess my question is, what line or thread do you see that's the same when you've had experience in so many different directions?
Yeah, I actually have given this some thought just recently, and the commonality that I see in those various pursuits, whether it was athletics throughout high school and college, and then on into the military and the professional world, nonprofit sector, I think I have a gene of competitiveness. I have to compete. I love being able to compete. And whether it's competing in track and field, whether it's competing in the military, whether it's competing in the business world, I have to be engaged in some type of competitive event. I make everything a competitive event. And to the point where my wife is like, Bob, you don't have to compete about it with everything. I'm like, yes, I do. So
I ate dinner faster than you today. Yeah,
like, that's right.
Really?
And, it makes family get-togethers for my family's side really interesting. But I would definitely say it is part of me. And the other part is I think I naturally gravitated to areas of leadership where I like to be in roles where I can lead, where I feel like I'm helping others, and where I'm able to influence. And so that's the commonality. Those two are two core, I guess, threads that you could weave throughout my nonlinear career.
Got it. So here becomes then that interesting question. It sounds like you would be an example of no matter where you go, there you are.
In some respects, I try to stay in the present. Absolutely.
Got it. Okay. So why leadership, though? Because I know there's a number of people who don't want any sort of leadership role or the responsibility that goes within it. But yet, I think a number of entrepreneurs that are listening that are wanting to step out don't even see themselves as a leader, but yet you naturally gravitate there.
Yeah, I'm not sure why I naturally gravitated there. I don't know if it's maybe some God-given abilities or just how I was just uniquely designed. Something just deep in me. I always found myself kind of moving into those leadership roles. And Jay, one of the things that I think that you and I and others that are listening today will see is far too often there are people in the world around us who aspire to leadership roles for all the wrong reasons. They see the trappings of success. They see leaders that have certain benefits because of the leadership positions that they're in, but they don't see the underbelly of leadership. They don't see all the hardships, all the hard work, all the pain that can many times come with bearing those leadership burdens. In my first book, I highlighted the story, the old Greek story of Damocles' sword, where the young prince wanted to see what it was like to be king. And he went and sat on the throne, and when he looked up, he saw that the huge sword hanging over the the king's throne, and he jumped out of the throne shrieking. It's like, why would you sit there? And the king looked at him, and we know the story. He kind of laughed and he goes, well, that such is leadership. That the common man, or the person who is not in a leadership position, a lot of times doesn't understand the burden of leadership. But I felt like that's something I've been gifted in, and I don't mind shouldering that burden as long as I feel like I'm doing something worthy and it's making a difference in the world around me.
Yeah, I totally get that. Now, take us on this journey. How do you go from athlete to author? There's something in the middle that changes that you, unless you just woke up one day and said, you know what, I think I want to write a book on this. I'm guessing there's a story.
Well, there is. I mean, I've always been a book lover, and one of the things that I found is I value the college education that I received, but I feel like I've received 100-fold more education post-collegiately by the books that I've read. I feel like I'm a self-taught individual, and I'm a voracious reader. And the most important asset that I have in my home, outside, and not included, we're talking material possessions here, would be my library. And I think it's the most valuable thing. When I talk to successful entrepreneurs and leaders, one thing that they all have in common is that they are readers. John Maxwell has this famous quote, "Leaders are readers." And so I got sucked into that vortex of, I just wanted to, gain knowledge, right. And I fell in love with books. And I've been fortunate to have kind of an interesting career and have a lot of different stories. And at one point in time, I just started blogging. So here's the unique story. I've had many friends who have written a book and tried to, get it produced or published. And I was out there. I was a blogger, and I was just blogging about stories, things that were on top of my mind and things that were interesting to me. And I got an email one day from a publisher in Chicago, and he said, "Hey, Bob, I work for such and such publishing company." This was Moody Publishers, and he goes, "I've been reading your blog, and have you ever thought about writing a book on this topic?" And all of a sudden, it just started the dialogue, and within a couple of weeks, I had a contract, and then I'm writing a book, and so that's kind of the crazy story about how I became a published author.
You do realize there's a number of people who probably just got irritated that it happened that way. They're like, no, it's supposed to struggle. Yeah.
I know. It's crazy. I've got friends who have been, it's truly a blessing. I mean, it has nothing to do with my talent or anything along those lines. I just feel like I was just completely blessed, and so I've been trying to make the most of the opportunity.
Got it. Okay, well then let's get into it a little bit, because when it comes down to, the idea of pivoting, it's something that we talk about a lot, simply because there's a number of people who begin to consider, business ownership or real estate as their way out. How do I transition from where I am to where I want to be without having my life fall apart? So the word that I keyed in on, or when I look at your book title, Love Your Work, 4 Practical Ways You Can Pivot to Your Best Career, is the word practical. So I'm curious to know, what are these practical ways that can help someone who might feel like they have the golden handcuffs or just can't take on something else to be able to go free themselves from the reality that they currently are experiencing?
Well, the great thing, Jay, is the fact that it's not rocket science, and there's people that do it every single day. What I have found, in my current job, I counsel people all across the country on these various topics. One thing that I've learned is that, even just recently, the Wall Street Journal had an article out that said 80% of the respondents in North America hated their job or disliked their boss. There's this sense where people are doing stuff that they don't like. They would want to do something different. They're not satisfied. They're looking for purpose in life, but they're scared. They're scared to make that leap. They're scared to make that transition. And what happens is fear will hold us back. And there's a lot of times people are waiting for everything to be perfect, for there to just be an immense amount of clarity. And that is never going to happen unless we take action. And so part of the practical application within the book is like, look, first of all, before we make a pivot, I've seen multiple people who have made pivots in their career thinking that they were chasing something that would make them happy or make them successful. They go through a whole bunch of work and effort. They get to this other career, and then they find out they're just as miserable. So the very first thing we want to do. We don't want to waste any more of our life. We don't want to waste time doing something that's not going to bring happiness and fulfillment. So I tell people in the book, you first need to know yourself to be able to lead yourself. And part of that process is truly understanding what your unique God-given talents and skills and values and passions are. Once you understand that, I tell people, hey, I recommend taking a career direct assessment. It's one of the best tools and resources I've found to help people understand that. But once you know who you are and what ignites you and excites you, the passions that you have, then you can start to craft a plan. So the planning would be part 2. And that's where you get mentors and advisors, people to come alongside you and help and check your thinking. It's one of the most critical aspects of this process. I've seen multiple people, once again, who crafted a plan by themselves, thinking that they were going to be, happy with it, and only to find out again that they were disappointed. And when we have a group of advisors around us to help us, that's where we get a better level of thinking, and we're able to have better ideas. And then from there, it's kind of, we've got to be willing to take a leap into the unknown, to take that first step, even though there's not a lot of clarity. And what happens is with each successful step, we start to build momentum and we start to gain clarity. And then all of a sudden we start to see that path in front of us. And so those are some of the basic steps of being able to make that pivot, be able to make that transition in our career.
Got it. Now, I think everybody was following right along with you, Bob. I think they were taking notes. I think they were excited. And then you said leap into the unknown. And then they're like, I think that's kind of what just happened there. But because there's this other, we'll call it school of thought, that I don't want to leap into the unknown. Not only do I not want to leap into the unknown, I'm going to research the unknown until it is all known. Then I will take action. What would you say to a person who finds themselves in that conundrum?
Well, I would definitely caution folks and say, look, you don't want to just leap without a plan. You don't want to just have impetuous action. Or you want to have action that's intentionally designed. And so research and due diligence is definitely a part of intentional design. But the flip side of that coin is there's folks out there that will overanalyze and overthink to the point where they will never make even the very first step. They're waiting for perfection, and that never happens. Jay, you're an entrepreneur, so you know this. Entrepreneurs have to live, or they live constantly in states of high ambiguity, where there's just various aspects of where things are unknown. You have to have the courage to operate in those realms of ambiguity. Yes, you're going to have plans, and yes, we're going to do due diligence. But even with all of that, there's still a little bit of that unknown. And so that's what I'm talking about. Is I don't know if I've ever seen someone make a leap or a transition or pivot where 100% every I was dotted, every T was crossed, where the end was 100% certain. There's always a little bit of element of, all right, I've done the best I can, but now it's time for me to take a step of faith and start heading in this new direction. It's a little bit scary at times.
A little bit scary?
Yeah.
Wow, you had it easy then. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but that brings us to the point where I know a number of listeners are going, one, how do I know that I'm ready to take that leap? And then two, there's the, okay, do you honestly expect me to get comfortable with this free fall feeling? Like, is that never going to go away? And there's this person who's working diligently right now trying to make that feeling go away. What would you say to those two individuals? Hey guys, thanks for listening as always, and I'm glad that you continue to support with each and every download and subscription and share. One of the things that I want to ask you though is, where are you listening to me from right now? I know some of you, maybe you're on a treadmill, maybe you're washing dishes, maybe you're walking that dog, and some of you are actually in a vehicle driving right now. One of the fun things that you can do, get some of your time back, is begin to living a car-free existence. But even then, it can be a little complicated. So one of the things that I want you to do is I want you to go over to Zipcar. Go to joinzipcar.com/cashflow diary. It's a way that I am able to still go get a car just for a few hours, very, very simply, so that if I have a lot of errands to run and sheets to drop off and running to the short-term rentals, or if I just want to go for a long trip up to LA and back, etc., I can rent a car for a very, very short period of time. And the cool part is I don't even have to pay for any gas. Again, go to joinzipcar.com/cashflow diary.
Well, it's a good question, and I think that the answer is going to be slightly different for every single person who's navigating those transitions. I have never found any transition to be identical to another. We all have different risk tolerances, and it's a big difference. So if you're a young person who's single in their early 20s, that pivot and that transition is going to be a lot different from someone who might be married in their 40s or 50s with 4 or 5 kids, right? So there's different things to take into consideration. One of the things that I've always, for me personally, I'm a person of faith. And so my faith has always been a bedrock for me, and it's been a blessing, because there's just been times where I've realized that I've had to make a leap of faith, and I didn't have all the answers, and I was just praying. I was like, look, I've done to the best of my ability everything that I possibly can do, and I'm kind of taking a leap of faith. And God, I'm praying that you're going. I feel like you're leading me in the right direction. I feel like I'm following the path that you have for me in life. And so I'm placing kind of my life and trust in your hands. And, that's never failed me. And so, I know that there's people with different backgrounds and may or may not have the same faith experience that I have, but that's always been something that's been very important to me as I've made these decisions in life.
Well, the interesting thing that I was going to say is, like, I don't know how to be an entrepreneur without having that same faith experience that you yourself have. Like, it's the only way I have found to make it through, because it's a little scary every day in various different forms and whatnot. So that's really where I'm coming from on that. Now, at the end of the day, though, there's this time where research is over, but yet it can feel like, especially at the beginning, that maybe I am taking action, and we're encountering either resistance in various different ways, because sometimes, because everybody else is doing the go to school, get good grades, get a job, that can feel like that's supposed to work. But here I am trying to pivot and do something new, and it feels like it's not working. How long do I give myself to know that the pivot that I've chosen is actually going to be viable?
Well, yeah, again, a brilliant question, and it's going to. I think that variable is different for each individual. I've seen people who are in a constant state of pivot because they never let anything take hold. They make a change and like, oh, I don't like this, I'll make a change again. And they're just constantly changing from job to career. And you're like, my goodness, give it some time, give your time to grow. Then, on the opposite end of the spectrum, there's folks who, have been in a particular career or trying to launch a venture. They're 5-10 years in, and it's been one failure after the next. And they're still just like, I'm not going to give up. And it's like, look, maybe it's time to make a change. This isn't working. So I think that this is where, for people who are in that boat, it's really important to have wise counsel and some mentors who can give you some perspective. Sometimes we get so myopic in the pursuit and that we lose sight of things that are happening around us. And when we have really wise counselors in our life who are able to look at what's going on from an angle, they see things differently than we do. They may be picking up on points or subtle clues that we may not. And there's times in my life where I've had a mentor or counselor when I was about ready to give up, they spoke life into me. They're like, hey, Bob, I believe in you. Look, I think you're doing the right thing. I see what's going on. You're almost there. You're right there. And these were people who had fruit on the tree. These were people who had results, and I believed them. Now, the opposite's also true. There's been moments in my life where I was gun ho on stuff and I was giving it my, the college try, as they say. And I had, people walk up and say, Bob, look, I don't see it. I know you're giving it your best, but I think that this is a wasted effort on your part. Here's why. And they helped me see a different picture. And I was like, you know what? You're absolutely right. This thing that I'm trying to launch, it's not going to go anywhere. It's I was diluting myself, right? And it allowed me to exit quicker and cut my losses and go do something else that was going to be more valuable for me in my career. So for those people who are in those phases, I would just say outside counsel, trusted counsel, wise counsel is so important.
Well, you're also speaking of something that I think it's difficult for entrepreneurs or would-be entrepreneurs to ever put themselves in that position. And I know it's difficult for myself. Fortunately, I have people around me, like you're talking about, to help me, because as an entrepreneur, we're typically positive. Everything's going to work. Hope is just around the corner. But knowing when to cut bait, so to speak, and knowing when to pivot is also a skill set as well. So for those that maybe they think currently they're listening, but they think that they can still keep doing what they're doing, but they find themselves listening specifically to this episode going, hey, how does one know when it's time to pivot?
For me, I've always gotten a sense deep down in my gut. There was something gnawing at me. So let me speak to folks who might be in a 9-to-5 job in a career, who are thinking to either transition industries or a different company, or maybe go out and become an entrepreneur. That for me, there's always been this welling up of there was a dissatisfaction, I didn't feel like I was connecting to my purpose and that I was learning and advancing, and I was yearning for something more. I was itching for a new competition or something new to tackle. And as I've interviewed people around the country and have been counseling others who are in similar situations, that's generally what's happening. It's welling up inside them. They're feeling it long before mentally they're kind of aware of it. And so I would just tell folks that might be listening today that, I think that you're going to feel it before you know it in your brain. It's just something that is moving inside of you. And so listen to it. I think, the old adage, your gut instincts, that's a figure of speech for a reason. We get these gut instincts that kind of move us, or we know it's like, hey, what's going on here? There's something real about that.
That's true. That's true. Now, I want to talk with you for a moment about one of those, we'll call them myths, because that's exactly what it feels like when I hear people say it, because they're going, you know what, I see what I'm doing, I like what I'm doing, or I don't like what I'm doing, whatever it is, it's time for a change. And the reason I want to make the change, Bob, is because I want to have control over my schedule, and I won't have to work as much, and it's going to be easier if it's just me in control.
Oh. Yeah.
I'm laughing for a reason, but I'm interested to hear your response to the person who's thinking, that makes sense right now.
Well, yeah, I tell you what, anybody out there who has not been an entrepreneur and has dreams of becoming one, and is doing so because they think that it's going to be easier and there's going to be less obstacles. Talk about a myth. It is, because I tell you what, you and I both know this. Being an entrepreneur is one of the most rewarding things that you can do.
Yes.
Everything. Success and failure, you eat off of both plates every day, and
sometimes simultaneously in the same meal.
and you have nobody. We have nobody. An entrepreneur has nobody to blame but themselves. It's the buck stops with us. But it is tireless work. And I was at a conference and recently, and it was Ann Byler, who was the founder of Auntie Anne's Pretzels. And one of the quotes that I just absolutely loved that she gave at this conference, she said, you know what? An entrepreneur is someone who's willing to work I think it was, she said 80 hours a week, so they don't have to work for 40 hours a week for somebody else. And that's really like the life of an entrepreneur. You're working around the clock, but you're willing to do it because you're the boss.
Yeah.
And it's going to be tougher work, but it is so rewarding. So the thing is, here's the word of caution. Never go down the path of entrepreneurship because you think of the lifestyle it will afford you, or the ease and comfort it will afford you. You've got to do it because you're passionate about what you're going to do, and because it's going to be harder work, much harder work. But a lot of times it can also, in the long run, you can build a life for yourself that's much, much more rewarding. So, yeah, it's funny that you brought that up.
Well, I'm just saying it's part of the pivot. I mean, sometimes that's the attractor. Grass is greener on the other side. My life is going to be constantly better. There's nothing worse that could possibly happen than what I'm currently experiencing now. And that thought process can lead many to that's it, I'm done. And as you said, impetuous action. And then on Friday, they're like, I quit. And on Monday, they're scared all over again. Like, what did I do? And these things can indeed happen. So I guess when it comes down to making pivots, let's talk a moment. What are some of the things that you see people do that you were like, man, I just wish you would have done this first before you ran and cut bait on the prior thing that you were doing? What are some of the ways to incorrectly pivot?
So some of the ones right off the top of my mind would be, pivoting without a plan. Just so that the person who just takes impetuous action and they're just full of self-confidence and courage and like, all right, I'm out of here. And like you said, wake up on Monday morning, be like, what did I just do? Another one would be not getting wise counsel. And specifically this, I've seen this happen multiple times, where an individual will make a career altering decision and if they're married or they have a significant other and they have not consulted their spouse or significant other in their life, that is a massive mistake. So making sure that the home front is united is very important. Another one would just be not doing enough due diligence and not having a plan of action. Sometimes we've got a great idea, but we don't have the actual skill sets to execute on it. And so I'm a big fan of continual learning. I mean, I shared with you earlier, I feel like I've gotten much more valuable education from being self-taught and reading than I even did when I was in college. And today, you can get a world-class education with MOOCs. And so MOOCs stand for Massive Open Online Courses. And you can get those, you can take those courses for free by Udacity or Udemy or edX. And I've seen entrepreneurs who are thinking about launching a business, and they first went out and said, you know what, I really don't have the skill set in finance or in accounting. And this is going to be really critical for me to be successful in this new endeavor. So they'll go out and they'll take a MOOC course, 6 to 12 weeks, and they'll start to hone up on the skill sets that they need to be successful. So I'm a huge fan of people making pivots and transitions in their life, but I want them to do it where they have the greatest opportunity for success. And so if there's areas where we need to gain extra skills, extra education, we need to go to a seminar and learn special ways in which we can navigate the new space that we're going to go into. I mean, let's do that first before we go take a big leap.
Now you're speaking my language, because I love talking about skill sets. But so at the end of the day, there's always the person who feels that, hey, I went to school, I got my good grades, but Bob, you're telling me to go back to school. I don't want to do that. I already did that. I don't need to go back, do I?
Well, let me share this one with you. So for a person who thinks that is in for a world of hurt. We have to be lifelong learners today. So I have a friend who is a professor at Harvard Business School, and he said the shelf life of a college education today is 3 years. Think about that. What we learn
Huh.
or what a person will learn in college, it has relevance for about 3 years. The world is moving so fast, so quickly, that there will be new technologies, new themes, new things that will be taking place in industry. And so he was imploring an audience. He's like, you all have to be lifelong learners. You have to be plugging in. You have to constantly be renewing your skills and adding new skills, and no matter what industry you're in. Otherwise, the world's going to pass you by. So a person who, now, look, our grandparents could go to college and they could leverage that education for their entire lifetime. We can't today. We go to school and the world is changing so rapidly, we've got to constantly stay up. So anyone today who says, hey, I've got a college education, I've made it, they're going to get crushed.
Yeah.
Literally, I mean, they're just, Jay, they're going to get crushed.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you 100% because, I mean, when you're talking about pivoting, that's kind of what you end up doing over and over again. You're like, this is what I do. And now technology has changed and what I do is obsolete. And now it's time to go this direction. And so I guess the question is with the, we'll say that the pace of technological change is ever increasing. How are we as human beings able to position ourselves so that we aren't obsolete, in 3 years?
Well, we have, no matter what industry that we're in, no matter what we're doing, we have to be aware. And it's one of the concepts that I talk about in the book extensively is how do we plug in? How do we stay aware of global trends? Because this is no longer, it's no longer, it's able for us to be successful just by plugging into local trends. We need to understand what's moving the globe. Things that are happening in China and the EU are going to impact us here on Main Street in the United States. So we need to be aware of these global trends and how it is going to impact our industry and our company. And there's many people out there that are they're plugging in, they're seeing those signs, and they're like, you know what? I see that my industry is dying and my company is not staying up, and I'm going to pivot out of this into a fast-moving current. That's another thing I talk about. What are the new fast-moving currents in our global economy that we can plug into where we can have success for 10, 20 years? And one of my favorite stories, it was a Warren Buffett story that I highlight in the book. And he was at a investors meeting with one of his portfolio companies, and there was a young person who was in charge of a business unit, and they were kind of bemoaning the fact that they were really struggling to get 3, 4, 5% returns quarterly in this business unit. And Warren's comment to them was, well, why are you working so hard to get 3 and 4% return? Just shut the thing down and pivot. Go into a place where you can be getting, 15 or 20% returns with the same effort. And so the same thing holds true, Jay, for us in our careers. Sometimes we are just working our tails off and we're getting little reward, when in reality, if we can pivot into these areas of the economy that are growing, where with the exact same effort, we could have, tenfold the reward or tenfold the opportunity. So those are the things that we've got to be plugged in and seeing. And it's easy to do. People need to know where to look.
Indeed. Yeah. Well, in order to know where to look, we've got to know to look in the first place. Because often, at least in my experience, it seems as though that the college degrees are sold with some sort of point of finality, like this is it and you're done. You are good to go, set for life. But that mentality has been around for such a long time. I think there's a lot of work to be done just to shift that thinking in and of itself.
Well, it's an old paradigm. And it's not holding true today because how the world has changed. And one of the things, probably the most important skill sets for a person who does go to college, it's not necessarily the information that they've learned, but the timeless principle that hopefully they've learned in school is how to acquire knowledge, how to learn, and then how to quickly use that in their career. Now, Astro Teller, who is one of the lead scientists at Google, gave a recent address at Stanford University, and he was highlighting that very principle. And he was telling Stanford students, he's like, look, the most important thing you can learn at Stanford is how to learn, and then how to quickly acquire that knowledge and leverage it for the greatest benefit for your company. And you know what, Jay, the thing that is so great about, being an entrepreneur, that's a skill set that you learn on the job as an entrepreneur. And it's something that you don't have to go to a college and get a college degree to learn how to acquire skills and then to quickly leverage it. So it's one of the benefits. I think entrepreneurs in the entrepreneurial world, it's a place where people are a lot of times self-taught. And they are lifelong learners because people who are in that space realize that they've got to constantly be gaining new knowledge, honing their skills and their craft. We realize that a 1% difference, learning something that makes us 1% better, can have exponential gains for us in our pursuits in life. So that's what's so exciting about this space.
Indeed, indeed. Now, I know there's a number of people who have listened this far, and they're probably like, man, I need to find out more about what this guy is doing. In fact, I might even want to grab a copy of the book. Can you tell them how to find out more about what you're up to and where they might find a copy of your book?
Well, yeah, you can get my book, Love Your Work, either at Amazon or Barnes & Noble and a number of other bookstores around the country. You can also follow me at robertdickey.com. That's my website, and I do a lot of blogging and writing on various topics. I really try to specialize and hone in on what's going on in the global economy and how to help people have success in their job and their work, and for those who want to pivot into a new career and those who want to pivot into an entrepreneurial career. So robertdickey.com is where I'm at, and I love engaging with people.
Excellent. Now, as we wind down here, I've got one more question for you because I'd love to hear your answer to all the would-be pivoters out there because I think it's going to be full of wisdom that needs to be shared and heard. So let's pretend for a moment that someone listening they're standing on that precipice, on the edge. They're thinking, man, I'm going to finally go do this entrepreneur thing. However, you know what? Let's even go so far as to say they're standing in front of the superhero outfit store. They are ready to go, but they have that voice in the back of their head. And I know you know the voice I'm talking about because it comes up anytime we think about going up and leaving our present place and becoming more. And it tells us things like, who are you and why do you honestly think you're going to write a book? No one's going to read it. I mean, like, why are you going to bother with that? You know, your business, it's never going to work because it's you. You can't do it. And for some people, they're even related to someone who is that voice. So my question is as follows. Let's pretend for a moment that they're actually going to follow through on what you suggest. They're actually going to do it. And they're going to do so in the next 24 to 48 hours. What would you suggest that they do?
Well, the first thing I'd say is that the toughest critic to fight, and the world is full of them, but the toughest critic for you and I and everyone listening to fight is the voice that's inside of us. There's so many tactics to be able to fight the external critic, but it's that little voice inside of us that speaks to us in our sleep, that's with us 24/7. It's hard to escape. And that's the critic, that's the voice that we need to squelch. And the one thing that I would share with people who might be having that voice right now, that voice of caution, that voice of, oh, you can't do it, that voice of self-doubt. Number one, our fears most often never come to pass. And that this is, I think about all the various fears that I had, whether I was an athlete or whether I was serving in the military, in the business world. Almost all of these fears that I've had in these various different things, they never come to pass. It's just a figment of my imagination. What if this? What if that? It never happens. And the other thing that I would say is whatever we think, what our initial gut reaction. This is a quote from my first book. And it's a quote by a CEO out of North Carolina. His name's Tom Darden. He runs about a $2.3 billion investment fund there in Raleigh. And he said to me, as I was interviewing him, he said, Bob, one of the things that I've learned in my career is that our gut reactions on anything almost always are wrong. He said, for example, someone loses their job. Their gut reaction is, oh my goodness, the world's coming to an end. I've lost my job. He goes, but what happens is if you interview that person a few weeks or a few months down the line, almost always they found something better. And they're like, oh my goodness, you know, the world is so much better. This opened up all sorts of opportunities. And so he challenged me. He said, I challenge you. whatever you think that your gut reaction, that initial gut reaction, it's almost always going to be wrong, especially if it's negative. And so for that person who's got that gut reaction of, oh, this is scary, this is, I don't know if I want to do this, I would try to, check that thought and realize that your fears almost never come to pass, and that that gut reaction that's kind of where you think that something may be negative, if you look at it from a different angle, there's positive there, and we just have to draw that out, and it's just around the corner. We've got to take that first step to make it happen.
Indeed. I definitely appreciate the wisdom in that answer, and because there's so many times where we can instinctively have the wrong gut reaction and consider it gospel truth, and unfortunately go down wrong paths. I definitely appreciate you, sir, taking the time to share your knowledge, insight, and wisdom here with us today at the Cashflow Diary.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Jay. Thanks for having me on your program.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. What does that mean today? Well, that means you would like to love your work. That's the title of the book. Go get a copy. Why? Because at the end of the day, you would like to love your work, and it is possible to love your work. So if you want to love your work, I suggest you go read a book entitled, guess what? Love Your Work. Go get a copy of that. Also, check them out at robertdickey.com, because I know that the additional information that you are going to learn will help you earn. Remember, you do your first deals for experience, not profit. Then later, you get to profit from your experience. It's been fun talking to you guys today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.